Hello, everybody. So, I wanted to put my spin on it. I mean, this is what my channel has gotten the most subscribers from, is the expanded universe. There's a fantastic, amazing, splendid video by my role model of the internet, Christopher Nelson. I'll leave a link to his video in the description. And make sure to check out my co-host from the podcast on the Expanded Universe website, Brennan Quinlan Voss on YouTube. I'll leave a link in the description as well to his channel. But later tonight, around 6 p.m., at least my time, Pacific Standard Time, I think. It might be 4 for me. I don't know. Anyway, point being, later tonight, click the bell button so you can make sure to be notified. There will be a big live stream about the whole topic surrounding today. So what is the topic surrounding today? It is the decontinuation of the expanded universe, now redubbed by Disney, or Lucasfilm, whichever way you slice it, Legends. The expanded universe got decanonized 9 years ago. I wasn't even a fan of the expanded universe 9 years ago. But it's been that long. It's been almost 10 years. Another year and it'll have been 10 years since the EU was decontinued. Now, for those of you who don't know, which I mean most of you who are subscribed to me do know, but for those of you who don't, the expanded universe was 30 plus years of continuity for the Star Wars universe. That was canon. And then Disney bought the rights to Star Wars and they said, all this stuff, gone. We're doing our own thing. But the worst part isn't that they just said, oh, this is not canon. They just stopped making stuff altogether for it. The EU was 30 plus years of books, comics, short stories, young adult novels, video games, RPG guides, etc., etc., etc. They were all within one timeline. They all fit. They were all connected. Was it perfect? No, nothing's perfect, but it was overall. I can say this because I've read about 95% of it. I haven't read all of it, but I've read the vast majority of everything there is to offer, besides like a couple source books and maybe some other minor things I'm missing. But I've read most of the expanded universe, and I can tell you it is fairly consistent. There are flaws, there are slight contradictions here and there, but for 30 plus years of continuity, it is very consistent. Anybody who tells you otherwise has not read the EU. They've read maybe bits and pieces or read a Wikipedia article and act like they know what they're talking about, but they don't. As someone who's actually read most of it, I can tell you it's pretty coherent. Now, the sad thing is, and the reason us EU fans make our YouTube videos and, are so disappointed, mostly, although Christopher Nelson brought out some great points in his video, is that the story doesn't end. Now, there's other areas that could be super fleshed out if the EU ever got continued, like the Dawn of the Jedi era, because there's only one novel and a couple comics. You could really flesh that out and make that an era worth visiting, Maybe make novelizations to some of the video games, so that way, old farts like Matt Wilkins, sorry, can enjoy the story there, like KOTOR 1 and 2. Because a lot of people just don't have time for video games because they're adults with like 4 kids and jobs and got time for video games, so read a novel, with the canonical way that the events went out. You could do that with SWTOR 2 because there's so much of that MMO. It'd be good for people that, don't have time to play that video game to have some sort of understanding of that story. And I feel like it's a real tragedy for people to, even if people think it's stupid, like I know Noah thinks, even though Noah's never actually played it, he just hears things, as a baseline understanding, thinks it sucks, but whatever. Point being, it still deserves to be in written form so people can enjoy it. Or not enjoy it, but still, it deserves to be out there. Then, of course, there's the thing of Force Unleashed 3, like a novel, not a game or anything, because Force Unleashed 1 and 2, video game, they also have novelizations, but the way Force Unleashed 2, it doesn't end. Now, of course, obviously Vader gets out because Episode 4 has to happen, right? Of course, that has to happen. But how? Because at the end of Force Unleashed 2, Vader's just captured. And there's No explanation as to how he left. We have no idea what happened to the main characters from that game or anything. Like, it's just left there. You know, some people might say that's for the best because they don't like the story, but for EU fans, they want conclusions of that sort of thing. And then you have an even bigger thing, you know, because then we move ahead to the most important, I think that people are most passionate about is you have every story post the movies. You have episode 6, then you have the Bantam-era novels, the New Jedi Order, Dark Nest, Legacy of the Force, Fate of the Jedi, Crucible. And then there's like a huge gap where you just don't know what happens. And then the Legacy comics. I think the Legacy comics can work as an ending, theoretically. But there's this gap in the middle because the Legacy comics have nothing to do with the novel characters. It's like the way it is left open. The Lost Tribe, which are a villain from Fate of the Jedi, are still around. They have not been defeated. This ancient, evil, monster, god thing, Abeloth, right? Like a big deal, is just left around. You know? It's like Christopher Nelson said, you know, episode 5, Vader wins, then you don't get another story. But, like, how about another example, like, I'm trying to think, the Harry Potter, for those of you who are Harry Potter fans, Snape kills, or whoever kills, I forget, Dumbledore, and you get no story after that. Half-Blood Prince, that's your last story. You don't get a conclusion. Would you be satisfied? I don't think you would be. And that's basically what we have. We don't have an ending, not really. And the Star Trek universe, you know, they had novels that were never canon, unlike the Expanded Universe, which was canon. But they asked over and over, and they got an ending to their stories. It was just a trilogy, but still. Us fans want a conclusion to our stories. I don't need the EU to go on indefinitely, though Christopher Nelson brings up a great point. You could just create new characters in the Expanded Universe and keep the Expanded Universe around, you know? Why end it? Because ultimately, it would only make them more money. I mean, look at Marvel and DC. Marvel, you got the Ultimate Universe, you got the main universe, you got this universe, you got that timeline, you got that Spider-Man, or 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 that Spider-Man. Or the universe where everyone's a zombie. Like, thousands upon thousands upon thousands of different timelines and events and things going on and on and on and on and on. And yet it's okay for those comic book characters to have multiple different interpretations, different storylines, different timelines, and it's all fine and dandy. Look at frickin' DC with Crisis on Infinite Earths, which is literally a story with, like, every story known to man in that story. It's insane. Like, that's how insane comics get. And all that EU fans are asking for is, oh, yeah. Your Disney stuff, all your TV shows, your movies, your video games, all that stuff. Keep doing that. Give us some more books, please. Is that really unreasonable to ask for? I don't think so. I don't think it is. But for some reason, Lucasfilm just doesn't care. And I don't know why. It would only give them more money. It really makes no sense. But I've already talked about this in other videos, mentioning Star Wars Visions and Ronin, and, you know, if that can make money, then why can't the EU? There would definitely be a return on investment, but I've said that, been there, done that. The point of the matter is, I know a lot of people were upset with Star Wars Celebration 2023 and the timeline eras of Dawn of the Jedi and New Jedi Order and all that stuff. Like, yeah, like a blatant, like, piss in our mouth thing to do by having these same exact titles of our eras. So that way, when people look up New Jedi Order or something because they're curious about what the hell we're talking about, they can go find the Disney stuff instead of what we're talking about. It's the same thing with Tales of Jedi now. If I want to tell somebody about Tales of the Jedi, I have to specify what I'm talking about, because I can no longer say, oh yeah, Tales of the Jedi, that fantastic comic book series. I have to now point out the fact that I'm not talking about the TV show by Dave Filoni. And that is a frustrating and heart-wrenching thing. But again, I don't think it's time to give up. Yes, it's been 9 years without the Expanded Universe, but we have had some good things in the past couple years involving EU. I wrote down a couple, just two things. There's other examples, but the Expanded Universe website did an article on June 12th, 2019, but in May of 2019, Marvel issue 108 of Star Wars released. Now, Marvel issue 108 was a finale, a love letter to the old Marvel comics of Star Wars, which started, I think a little bit right before the movies actually came out, with the first couple issues being the movie, basically. And they're very, kind of campy and cringe, and, it's old comics, but at the same time, somebody had a passion to make a conclusion, and they got to do it. It's one of the few times we've gotten a new, legitimate, the only time we've gotten a new, legitimate EU story, not counting, Supernatural Encounters, which I count as official, but it's a whole hot button topic. It's not canon, it's never coming out, blah, 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 blah. Anyway, despite that, the one thing you can argue is that Marvel issue 108 came out, and was official, it was canon to the Expanded Universe, it was released. And, in May, it was 40th best-selling comic book of the month. 40th out of all the comic books coming out at that time, whether that be Star Wars or otherwise. That's insane. That shows you the demand for it. With the unofficial book that got released in 2021, The Heart of the Jedi, which stayed on Amazon for 2 weeks, or 2 months, or whatever it was, it outsold all the Star Wars books for 12 hours. The only reason it didn't, supersede all of it, mainly was due to the fact of Zahn releasing another Thrawn book in the new canon, which means Thrawn's popular, of course it's going to outsell. And there was a new, Light of the Jedi book or something, another Disney thing, I don't know. But other than that, surprisingly, it lasted really high up there for a long time. So clearly the demand is there. If they made something official, fans would buy it. The proof is there. Anybody who says, oh, well, they wouldn't make a return on their investment hasn't done their homework. Right? It's clear as day you would. They would. They would make a return in their investment. Would it be as big as their TV shows? No, but it also doesn't require as much money as the TV shows and everything else does. It honestly only seems to not be done out of spite. Because we won't just shut up and enjoy their stuff. I don't mind people enjoying the new stuff, but why must my stuff be cast aside? I just want really, truly an ending. As Christopher Nelson said, it'd be cool to get new characters and new adventures and new eras that are just, completely, brand new stories. But if I could just get a conclusion, I personally would be content. And so I'll keep fighting. I don't think it's time to give up yet. I know it seems like they probably never will, but they've never officially told us they never will. So until that day comes, I will not give up. But the Expanded Universe may have been gone for 9 years, but we can still celebrate it. We can still love it in our hearts and celebrate it and praise it and talk about it on the internet. That's how this community will thrive, because people, like to argue that the EU's dead, that there's no point in continuing it. But the EU community, the fandom has grown. Look at me. I didn't even know about the EU 9 years ago. And look at where I'm at now. Talking to Christopher Nelson and Matt Wilkins and Quality Autism and all those other Star Wars tubers, I didn't even know what the Expanded Universe was 9 years ago. 9 years ago, I was still a child. 22, 20, 19, 18, 17, 16, 15, 14. I was 14 or 13 9 years ago. Right? And the Disney movies are just coming out around that time. I didn't even know about the EU yet. And yet, look at me now. And there's many people like that coming into it. The more they introduce EU elements into the new stuff, the more people keep checking back in the old. So, the Expanded Universe community is bigger than it ever has been now. And it is worth fighting for still. It is not time to give up. If you give up, you do exactly what Lucasfilm probably wants you to do. But don't. Keep fighting. I know it's been a hard 9 years of the expanded universe. I've only started to experience this for the last couple, like 3 to 4 years with that, having no expanded universe, but it's not the end. We still have hope. We can still get more legends, more expanded universe stories if we keep fighting for it, if we keep praising it, maybe one day. And if not, if it never comes, at the very least, we can continue to praise and celebrate what we got to have, over those past 30 years. Different fandom. But I've been rewatching Doctor Who in anticipation for the new Doctor coming out. And I watched the Vincent episode where they meet Vincent van Gogh. And the thing about Vincent van Gogh is that he would end up taking his own life. And after this fictional adventure where they got to meet Vincent van Gogh and show him the wonders of everything, he still went through with it in the end. Now, I know this sounds depressing, but there's a point. Because they go back to this art gallery to see, did we change things? Nothing changed. Some small things, but he still died. And the way to comfort the companion, the Doctor goes to Amy Pond and goes, the good things don't necessarily soften the bad things, but vice versa. The bad things don't necessarily spoil the good things and make them unimportant. And we definitely added to his list of good things. Even if the EU never gets continued. That doesn't spoil the 30 plus years of stuff we've had. And as long as we continue to talk about it, we can still honor the EU and, show our love and appreciation through that. There's other events that are controversial, like Legends Con and everything, which, I'll tell you this. I'll tell you a personal story. After hearing many arguments, after listening to what other people had to say, listening to Christopher Nelson, or hearing about what Christopher Nelson had to say, I really had no interest in going. I wasn't going to go to Legends Con. I had no interest at that point. I kind of just I just don't feel like spending the money anymore and doing that. Happy for the people who do go, though. So what happened? I come home from work one day. I get on Discord. I talk to two great buddies, Quinlan Voss, Brennan, and the Revanchist, who you should definitely subscribe to, Marcel Ryan, on Discord. And they basically give me an AA meeting, of how I need to quit alcohol, except why I need to go to Legends Con. They even offered to buy my ticket. And then they did. So now I have to get time off for that. Of work, I mean. Look at that. People who have never met me in person. Vast distances apart from where we live. And yet they were willing to buy me a ticket to Legends Con just so I can meet them in person and celebrate the expanding universe with them. Even if the con sucks and it's stupid and lame or whatever some people like to argue, no matter what, I'm going to have a good time because I'm going to be there with Marcel and Brennan. And that's what the EU fandom is like. I'm not saying that everybody's going to do that, but look at that. I didn't even know these people 9 years ago. And look at where I'm at now. Look at what they were willing to do for me. That's friendship. That's a community. That's what we're fighting for. More stories, of course, but look at this community. Look at the people in it. Not everybody's great. Some people are, toxic little buttholes, but on the whole, at least from what I've seen, is pretty positive. So, no matter what happens, more EU stories or not, look at what we've built. And it's still growing. Friends have been made, videos have been made, live streams a dozen, all to praise this universe that has been taken from us. Lucasfilm, give us more. Just give us more stories. Let us finish our timeline. I promise you, if we successfully got stories that tied up loose ends and led up to the Legacy Comics, for the most part, most fans would be satisfied. We just want an ending, mainly. But who knows? Maybe I'll be the stupid dummy in another 10 years and we'll still be having this conversation. And I'll rightfully say, you told me so. But until that day comes, I'm not giving up. And you shouldn't either. Well, happy birthday to the destruction of our 9 years since the EU got discontinued. Happy birthday. What the hell? Anyway, I love you all. Love this community. Love these stories. And I hope one day we get to see it continued. Till next time. May the force be with you.